Welcome to C'est La Vie Dawn. Today I'm going to show you how to make this rustic tree stand and these 3 rustic farmhouse trees. Today's video is part of the Christmas DIY and Decor Challenge hosted by the DIY Mummy. I will link the playlist in my description box below, so don't forget to go and check out what all of the other creators have made for this challenge. So for the first part of this DIY, I'm using a wood cookie which is sliced off of a log. The bark has come off of this one, so I just took all the bark off. I'm also using 3 jute ropes from Dollar Tree. And you're going to need a drill with a 3/4 inch bit. I just gave it a quick rough sand. And I'm marking it in 3 spots. You don't need a ruler as long as they are equally apart. So I just actually used a chopstick. Then I'm drilling 3 holes all the way through. Now we're going to take the jute ropes from the Dollar Tree and we're just going to place them through the knot. On the bottom of the log, I'm just tying a knot. I'm going to do that to all 3. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would stay and subscribe to my channel where I do DIYs, hauls, thrift shopping, paper crafting, and much, much more. Now for the top part, you're just going to adjust your length as to how long you want your plant hanger, and you're just going to tie all 3 rope into a loop and just trim off the excess. Here I'm just tightening the loops. I will be showing how it's hanging. Next part of the DIY, I'm using 3 Dollar Tree cones, 1 of each size. They come in 3 sizes. And I'm using some brown acrylic paint from Dollar Tree, and I'm just giving each of the cones I'm using a coat in the brown paint to cover up the white styrofoam. Okay, so for this cone, we are going to be using some chicken wire. You can get chicken wire at Dollar Tree. I was unable to find it, so I got mine at the Home Depot. You're going to use some green moss that I got from Dollar Tree and some pip berries that you can get from the Dollar Tree as well. So I'm taking some Spanish moss and I'm going to hot glue it all around the base of the cone, just working in patches. Once the moss is glued all along the cone, I'm just trimming any excess and patching up any that I missed. Now I've cut a piece of chicken wire off of the roll, and I'm going to be wrapping it around the cone. Use caution when you're using chicken wire. Just going to wrap it around, and you're going to push the wire in a little bit as I'm rolling it here. Be very mindful of the sharp edges where it's been cut. With the wire cutters. I'm just wrapping it around to get it into the cone shape. Just playing with it. Up near the top, I'm pushing it in to make it more narrow, and I'm just continuing to get it around the cone. Once I've got it all around the cone, I'm just snipping off the extra part that is too long. The wire cutters. Now for this part, I'm just wiring it back together, and I'm using some round nose pliers for the sharp edges, and what I'm doing is I'm turning them into the foam and pushing them into the styrofoam just so there are no sharp edges. This is the back of the cone anyway, that nobody will see. Now for the top, I'm just continuing to trim and working to make the top more of a cone shape, and bending the wires towards the back and trimming off any of the excess and just putting any extra wire into the cone. Now I'm using this berry garland, pitberry garland from Dollar Tree. I decided to use that instead of the berries I showed at the beginning. So I am just placing this at the bottom of the tree and just wrapping it around the tree. And there you have our first tree for our hanging wood cookie display. For the next part of the DIY, which is the second tree, I am using the second size cone from the Dollar Tree, some jute rope, and a little bit of the green moss from Dollar Tree. And I am just hot gluing the jute rope all around the tree, just working in sections, adding a little bit of hot glue every once in a while as I wrap the jute rope around the cone. And once you get to the top, you are just going to trim off the excess and glue the cut piece in the center. Now what I'm doing here is I'm taking a little bit of moss and I'm going to be placing it throughout the jute wrapped around the cone. Not everywhere, just placing it here and there just to give it a little bit of greenery throughout. And there is the second tree that will be going on our hanging display. For the third and final tree, I am using some birch bark and the smallest of the 3 cones from Dollar Tree. So I'm just taking some birch and I'm just wrapping it around the tree using some hot glue, just working to get it around and making it a tree shape. And once you get it around, just trim off any of the excess around the bottom. And for the top, I just used some leftover pieces of the birch and just wrapped it around the top, over the top, and around the sides to get the tip of the cone to make it look like a tree shape. And there you have the third cone. I just love how the curls stayed on the bark. And here's how I put it together. I added some snow, some lights, and it just looks adorable hanging in my home for Christmas. I'd like to thank Christina from the DIY Mommy for hosting this challenge. Don't forget to check the playlist. Thank you so much, everyone.